next month. The Budget Committee, I'm going to leave open for now, and I'll leave the Road and Bridge Committee open until next month. I have no correspondence. Do we have any public body comment?
I have a question.
Terry, go ahead.
Yeah, I've been here 3 years now. We've never filmed before, and I'm sure it's legal because we wouldn't do anything if it wasn't legal, right?
Amen.
And why is it here and who's going to use it?
Well, it's a public body meeting, and I believe this is the Douglas County Watchdog Group that's filming us today.
How come?
I can answer that if you would like me to.
Go ahead, and introduce yourselves and answer that.
I'm John Kraft with the Edgar County Watchdogs. You had the wrong county.
Edgar County, excuse me.
Public meetings are required to be open to the public, and they also require that the public body permit recording the meetings by video or audio. So you can't even have, that's the reason why I brought my cell phone in here too, because you can't even have your meetings in a building that prohibits cameras or cell phones, because then we can't come in and record. What we're going to do with it, I don't know yet. We typically post it online so people can watch it. We're not going to be at every meeting. We just showed up to this meeting because we were interested in some of the topics that were possibly going to be discussed. Is there anything else?
No, you're welcome.
Yeah.
Glad to have you.
Kirk Allen's here
Sorta.
too. He's co-founder of the Edgar County Watchdog. That wasn't my public comment though. That was an answer.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. And then,
I just had one question. When you were doing the committee appointments, you skipped over the budget?
for the time being.
That'll be next month also
Yes.
then? Okay.
Come on up front and introduce yourself. I forgot your name again.
That's okay.
It's,
Jeremy Williams.
yeah, okay, I should know it by
Thank
now.
you. That's okay, sometimes I forget to. I was here last month. I want to thank you again for the opportunity to come by and speak today. I'm here on behalf of the Illinois Separation, which is an advisory referendum that I'm trying to have put on this November's ballot. It's just to put the advisory referendum on the ballot and give the people an opportunity to express their opinion, voice their opinion at the ballot box. That's all it does. I did hand out some packets of information. I know some people were able to take some and some weren't. I wanted to touch base and check in. I wanted to let you know I'm continuing to drive the petition. I may be skinnier next time I'm here because I'm walking doors, which is fun. I wanted to see if anybody had any questions from the packet information that I handed out last time. If there were any questions or concerns or anything that I might be able to speak to.
All it really is that you just want to have permission to put it on the ballot for the voters to decide.
Yeah, it's just an advisory referendum. It's non-binding. It doesn't hold anybody's feet to the fire or anything like that. I just want it to be on the November 3rd ballot. It's an initiative that's being pursued by many counties in the state, practically all counties in the state. There are people out there collecting petition signatures. This is already on the ballot in, I think, about 8 different counties. And I actually think some county boards were going to address it 2 days ago and some yesterday. So that number may have changed in the last few days. But it's already on the ballot in several counties. It's just an advisory referendum so people can have a voice. And that's really all I'm asking, is that at some point in the near future, we have till about summertime to do this. So it's not like it's urgent. Don't have to do it next time or anything. But it's just to put it on the ballot and let the people vote yay or nay at the ballot box is all it is.
Jessica, does he need so many signatures or something? to be able to put-
He should know per statute what he's required with the petition.
What I need is one of 2 things: county board approval to place it on the ballot, or 731 signatures from registered voters in this county. And I'm working on both.
Mr. Chairman, since the gentleman was here last time, I've talked to a lot of people in my area and around the county even, and they say, yeah, we'd like to say something about it, separate us, you know, so it'd be good to let our people have an opportunity to say something too. Thank you for your hard work.
Thank you.
Isn't there a piece of legislation that was introduced in the General Assembly concerning this?
There was, it's along the same lines.
And what's the difference?
That I can't speak to. I know more about what I'm doing, and I know less about that. I know that they're related, they're in regards to the same kind of thing, but I'm not the one that introduced that, and I'm not the authority to speak on it.
I was just wondering why we need that on the ballot if it's already in the General Assembly in the works.
Well, I don't know if that's a binding resolution. Can Brad speak to that?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to address the
Brad,
question.
go ahead.
So what happened back in February was HR 101. It's a resolution, and it's calling for Congress, it's urging Congress to separate or make Chicago into its own state. Okay, today in the state of Illinois, there's two movements that are seeking to separate from Chicago. One is the advisory referendum path that Jeremy's a part of, that's doing a petition drive to get signatures to place the initiative on the ballot, or by county board resolution, you guys can do that. The other pathway is New Illinois, and New Illinois looks at the constitutional pathway to get that done with the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and the Declaration of Independence. That's about a six-step process to get that done. Okay, now it's a resolution, and it takes at least 60 co-sponsors on that resolution to move that forward. Currently, there's not that many on that. Okay, but it's just bringing attention. It's been done times before in the General Assembly. It always gets offered up, but never before has this resolution gotten as much traction as it's received this year. Okay, so there's just this growing disconnect, if you will, between the urban and the rural parts of the state of Illinois. To make a short story longer, back in 1964, there was a U.S. Supreme Court case called Reynolds versus Sims that forced us into a democracy. Currently, the U.S. Constitution guarantees us a small r Republican form of government. We are a constitutional Republican. Well, Reynolds versus Sims has changed the way apportionment was done in selecting our representatives. Okay, so that's a discussion really for another day. Basically, U.S. at the time, Senator Everett Dirksen back in about 1968 said, under Reynolds versus Sims, this is going to allow large population centers to control the state. That's what's happened in New York, that's what's happened in Chicago or in Illinois, that's what's happened in New York, that's what's happened in Nevada, that's what's happened in Washington State, is the large population centers are controlling the agenda for the rest of the state. Chicago can carve themselves in and out of any legislation they want to, but when it comes to matters of life and matters of marriage, matters of minimum wage, matters of allowing us to what we can do with our own property to mine oil or mine coal and to drill oil, they impose their way on the rest of the entire state. That's why this effort continues to grow. Gun control is another issue, but it's really about the lack of representation because of this U.S. Supreme Court case that was forced on the entire United States back in '64 that has forced us into this state. This effort that Jeremy's a part of in the state of Illinois, there's efforts in California that's been going on for almost 4 years. There's a growing effort in Washington State. There's a new effort in Nevada. There's a solution that's being proposed in New York State and maybe others. But this is an effort that's going on all across the nation because of what's happened in the last 50 years.
Well, there's other states that's going the same route too. It's not just Illinois. Your direction basically takes a little power of Chicago out of controlling whether we get to speak our mind down here.
Yeah, well, it would take Chicago's influence away. Yeah. And to the point that Brad made about the Supreme Court case, you know, at the federal level, our representation in the House consists of representing population. And in the Senate, it's 2 per state, regardless of population. But in Illinois, the House is also comprised of population, but the Senate districts are comprised of 2 House districts. So, in a sense, the Senate districts are comprised by representation, or I'm sorry, by population. It's not a senator a county or a senator every 2 counties. You have a small district that's made up by a populace and a bigger district that's also made up of a populace. That's why we have a democratic form of government in Illinois in a republic like the United States. Our state government does not represent how the Constitution of the country is set up, and that's why representation is so disproportionate. It's because even our senators are elected by a certain pocket of population at the state level, and not equal representation like the federal Senate is made up. I hope that explains a little
Jeremy
bit.
gave a great point there, and what we need, basically in the United States, our congressmen and women are elected by population, but regardless of the population in the state, every state has 2 U.S. senators. What we need in Illinois, still elect your representation by population, but give a county a senator, a state senator. That changes the picture, but right now, under the system of Reynolds versus Sims in '64, the rewrite of the state constitution in '70, the cutback amendment of '82, this has concentrated power into a small geographical area, and that's the issue at hand. And so this just is a common sense, this is a nonpartisan issue that should give credence to more people's voice in these matters.
Okay, but with that, I'm gonna call Jeremy. You've had enough floor time. Jeremy's made some good presentations here. You know, there's nothing on, we're not gonna pass a resolution today. You're all board members, I'm the chairman. Whether or not we want to take this another step, I need advice. I've got plenty of people, you know my phone numbers. We'll go from there. Thank you, Jeremy.
Do I need to come up there?
I appreciate it. In the past, we've had people standing out there, and I
Not a
think that
problem.
most of the people get your back.
Excuse me?
Well, I mean, maybe we'll move your seat. I'm the one that's had the back to them all this time.
At least I'm not up here when there's a judge.
No, I was kidding. You don't want to be there then.
So I'm John Kraft, I'm the co-founder of the Edgar County Watchdogs, and follow on to what I said a little while ago. I understand that some people are reluctant to come to your meetings and bring their cell phones with them because of the sign that's outside, and I would appreciate it if you would put another sign that says, you know, hey, if you're coming to a public meeting, feel free to bring your cell phones. It's on the agenda to shut your cell phones off, but any member of the public should be, well, they are permitted to bring their cell phone in here without being questioned by the security that's downstairs if they're coming to a public meeting. They should just say, I'm coming to the county board meeting, I'm bringing my cell phone. We didn't get questioned today. A couple months ago we did when we showed up to a electoral board hearing, but we still got in with our cameras and our cell phones. The other issue is, and the county board is not, well, I don't know any other word, but guilty of this. They're not. I've submitted a FOIA, several FOIAs, one to the county sheriff for videos from the security system. I got maybe 1/10 of the videos that should have been provided on a hard drive, and the county paid, or the sheriff paid $600 or $700 to get the videos, and he should have went and got all his money back if that's the only videos that were provided to him. And then I understand somebody resigned instead of from their employment, instead of, you know, having a video being shown of people working when they weren't here working. I appreciate it, you guys have started clock in, clock out with your employees. And the other issue is and this is again with the sheriff, Kirk, I believe, submitted a FOIA request a few days ago the county or whatever public body or entity receives a FOIA request has 5 business days to respond. They can extend that for another 5 business days for reasons listed in the Freedom of Information Act. But what they can't do is just ignore it and say, oh, well, my person's not here, I don't have to comply until they get around and figure out they have time to respond. You can't do that. You subject yourselves and the county and the taxpayers to lawsuits. State's attorney has to defend what is indefensible. A non-reply to a FOIA, there's no defense for that. Even if it is during the Christmas break or a school district during the summer break, there's no defense for that. So,
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask the gentleman a question.
Yeah.
So if we've been doing something wrong for 30 years, it's okay to keep doing it or not do it?
no,
Kinda
you
being
gotta fix it. If it's wrong, you gotta fix it. Laws change, number
Yes,
one.
Very true.
And that's something we hear all the time, unfortunately.
Yes.
Well, we've been doing this forever. Yeah, well, that's not what the law says.
Very good. Thank you,
Think
sir.
about changing. Thanks.
Does the state answer you when you FOIA them?
Yes, they do.
They do? I
And
heard
they
they
answer
did.
within 5 days generally.
The state does?
Yes, except for the state police. That's a different story. But they're still required to.
Because they
just
got
don't do
bigger
it.
But you don't go after them?
Yeah, we do.
Kirk
You
Allen
get
has
anywhere?
the floor.
We sue them. Yeah, we get the records.
Thank you. How's everybody doing this morning?
Hungry.
Long, hungry. All right, I get it. I will do my best to share my information. Mine's like a parachute. It works best when it's open. I'm a messenger. After a career in the military, I learned to ask 2 questions, and I ask them all the time. Says who, with what proof? We hear a lot of things, and the first thing we do is go to validate what we hear. We do that both verbally and when we see things in writing. We were made aware of a recent discussion, I believe it was during one of the committee meetings regarding coroners, and some of the comments that came out during that in the audio I'd like to address. But before I do that, how many board members have actually read the Illinois compiled statutes for the county board members' powers and duties?
In the process.
That's 55, correct?
That's good.
It's a
UCCI.
55.
Okay, great point. You got a book from,
UCCI,
okay.
county handbook for UCCI.
Okay, those are guides, and I can assure you both county, municipal, and township handbooks throughout we have exposed do not follow state law in their recommendations. That's why I asked the question, have you read the powers and duties of your position? And the reason it's an important question, you're the state's attorney, I'm assuming. Are you busy?
Yes, sir.
Okay. It's typical, because we've always done it this way, to default to one legal counsel, your state's attorney, for everything. How up are you on all of the local government laws for the county? It's tough. There's so many and they change. It's one of those, we'll write the question down and they'll have to get back to you. My recommendation is get back to you in writing. That way you have something that's documented that nobody can say, well, you didn't understand what I said. Document it. With that, how many have read the statutes applicable to the coroners? How many have read the statutes applicable to the treasurer or the clerk? And the reason I ask, it's important as a cohesive body. Our job as watchdogs, we're a nonprofit organization, and our job is not just to come in and expose everything you're doing wrong. It's to fix problems. We're going to expose some problems, and we hope that you fix them. Those are good stories that get to be written. What we find is, more often than not, we don't know what each other's supposed to be doing, what they can and can't do. Says who with what proof. My suggestion is read the law and only do what the law permits you to do. You can't do it if it's not in the law. I say this because we find counties all over the state that are not following the law. If you're not following it and other counties turn to you and say, well, that's how Shelby County does it, guess what? Now you have another county doing the same thing you're doing. It's incorrect and it perpetuates itself. The audio of recent meeting, the concerns that were raised, this is strictly from a pure professional standpoint. And I don't know any of you people, so I don't know the people within this. I've been told the names of them, but I've not been able to verify because I haven't talked to those individuals yet. One of them yells, "Shut up," to the treasurer. Now, I don't know about y'all, but I whooped my kid's butt when he would tell people to shut up, okay? That's just uncalled for in my opinion. It's just my opinion, you may disagree, not a problem. And I will fight to the death to respect your right to that opinion. Another one was a woman's voice. Give her hours whether worked or not. Turn it in anyway. No. You get paid for what you worked. You don't get paid in advance, and you don't do those things with pay.
Where do you get your
One of the
information? Who gives you your information?
We have multiple sources, and those are confidential for the reasons to prevent repercussion.
So if it's open, if you're given things from an open meeting, why isn't that open?
The audio it's a public record. Okay,
I'm saying,
it'll be
but why
published.
isn't the person who tells you this stuff open?
Because the law protects those people under the First Amendment. I can give you the case law to back that up. One of the other questions that was on that audio was what I heard, I believe you say today. You have no right to question. Well, I tell you what, you better start questioning.
Amen to that.
And I'm going to go through why. I heard one of you make the argument the auditor never found a problem, nor the IRS, and they would have caught it. This is the lamest argument I've ever heard. Oh, we've never had anybody tell us it's wrong, or we've never been exposed, or the auditors never found it. To use the failure of identifying a problem in the past as an excuse to not fix what has been identified as a problem is why we have the mess we do in this country. There appears to be more interest in protecting the status quo rather than fixing what's clearly broken, and I will go into those details. Case in point, Dixon, Illinois. How many are familiar with what happened in Dixon, Illinois? What happened for 20 years? Clean audits, clean IRS reports. Nobody knew a thing, and that woman stole $53.4 million. Nobody asked questions. 55 ILCS deals specifically, orders to be filled up and authorized. The county treasurer shall not countersign any county order before the same is filled up, nor until she has examined the records of the county board and ascertained that the issuing of such order is warranted thereby. You're asking a treasurer to just blindly do things. I can tell you, case law doesn't support that. She has an obligation to question the validity of things she's putting her name on. And where that comes from as a township supervisor, I was asked to sign checks. I was the sole signer. And we had people come in, it was Rides Mass Transit was one of them. They sent us an invoice. And I think your state attorney will probably say, I don't think that's real legal. When we dove into it, I said, well, why am I paying this invoice? Well, that's your portion that you're supposed to pay because we provide transportation in your county or in your township. So I looked up the statutes related to their jobs, their powers, and their duties. They're fully funded through the federal funding system, and that's where they get their money, and they charge for rides. They have no authority to send a bill out to townships to pay them, but they were doing it over and over and over. And I said, I'm not paying it because it's illegal. I found no statutory power to put my name on that check. We stopped paying it. Never heard another word from them. Many other townships stopped paying them too. And guess what? Rides Mass Transit still functions. Payment of money. No money or funds shall be paid out of any county treasury except in accordance with an order of the county board or when payment is specially authorized by law to be made. Identifying that it's a legal payment, you have to ask questions. That shouldn't be a problem. Duties of a coroner. Part of that audio tape, and we'll publish the audio tape so everybody can hear what was said for those that weren't at it. Compensation of deputies. We heard all the discussion of the deputies that are there, when they're working, when they're not working, and it was amazing to listen to. Questions that were in there, the answers are right in the statutes. That's why I asked if you read them. Subject to budgetary limitations established by the county board. You folks have that power within that. Section 3-3040, same county code. The appointment shall be in writing and signed by the coroner. Deputies' compensation shall be determined by the county board. You guys set the compensation. The question there was, well, that office can do whatever they want. No, they can't. It says right in the statute they can't. It specifically spells out the county board's supposed to be doing it. Nowhere does it talk about contracting with people to be deputies. That was one of the subjects. Well, we'll just make them independent contractors, give them 1099s. No, they're employees of the county. Talk to your insurance company because you'll see other liabilities about what you can and can't do in that regard. An example of such powers to contract employees you'll find in county airport statutes, fire protection districts. There's several others that the statute specifically says you have the right to contract someone for the management of. As a fire chief, I can be contracted to do the job. Airport manager, same way. The county code does not give such power to a coroner. Now, you mentioned the ETSB. ETSB is the Emergency Telephone System Board. That's why the Edgar County Watchdogs started back in 2011. And I could go on for hours on that, and I won't. However, there's some points that came here today that you may not be aware of. I don't know if your ETSB coordinator, director, whatever you call them, has a contract, but there's no provision for ETS boards to contract someone to do their job. We've stopped it in other counties. When you read the statutes, they have no such power. What's interesting with that statute, and what you're seeing right now, is a progressive failure of the system being done properly. What is the Emergency Telephone System Board? They take what type of calls? Anybody? Emergency calls. That's their sole purpose. Is it a crime to make a false 911 call?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. We have 911 centers all over the place charging other entities for non-emergency calls. Well, why are they dispatching non-emergency calls? That's not their job. Their job is to dispatch emergency calls. I'm required to keep a non-emergency phone number in the fire department. So when they get non-emergency calls, they should be telling them you need to contact your local police, fire, or whatever agency it is if it's a non-emergency. Well, ETSB, the whole system has gotten so out of control, many of them are broke. In 2014, they passed a law that the state now takes it over. State police is in charge. The ETSB statute sunsets. It's done. No more statute that the county has any control over 911 effective December 31st of this year. How many knew that? Okay, and that's an important thing to know because you folks are talking about making a decision of going into intergovernmental agreements with 2 other counties for something that you've only got 11 months left or 11 and a half months. And that whole statute, that whole system is now going to be in the control of the state police, and it's their problem because they're the ones now that get to figure out how to fund everything, not the county coffers.
That's good to know.
Another example of, we've always done it this way, and we found this from reading this one set of minutes. There was action taken by the county board to hire an attorney. Your state's attorney is your legal counsel. That office is a legal representative of all county officers, and you cannot pay a private attorney to represent the county board on matters. Such an action violates Ashton v. Cook, which is the well-established case law on it, and I'll read directly from it. Quote, "The law is well settled that when the Constitution or the laws of the state create an office, state's attorney, prescribe the duties of its incumbent and fix the compensation, no other person or board, except by action of the legislature, has the authority to contract with private individuals to expend public funds for the purpose of performing the duties which were imposed upon the officer." We're paying your state's attorney, the state pays. That's your legal counsel. Why should the taxpayers be paying for another attorney? They shouldn't. It violates case law. It violates state law. But you've been doing it for, I think this resolution, been many, many years. I don't have the date on this one, but it's been for quite some time. From past minutes, and these are things to help streamline. That's why it's so important to read your powers and duties. There's been, this is a quote from your minutes, there's been several questions on the minimum and maximum salaries of multi-township assessors. The maximum salary is $15,000 with no minimum. How many are familiar with multi-townships? Multi-township assessors? Does the county board have any input whatsoever on multi-township assessors or township assessors? None. I don't even know why this was a discussion for a county board meeting, but not only is it not a place for a county board meeting, the information is 100% wrong. The statute does not say anything about this county board setting those limits. right out of the township, or the revenue code, which is established, each multi-township board of trustees shall set the salary of its multi-township assessor. So why that became an issue in the county board meeting is beyond me. Another one, and I just got the resolution today, and this is back to says who with what proof, and I'll close out on this. This was in your minutes. Sheriff Mike Miller presented a resolution for the board's approval that would allow the court to collect a $10 fee, which would then be put into a fund for inmate medical expenses. And it cites a statute, and that's important. It cited a statute. I had a place to go. Okay? I read that statute. I read the resolution this morning. And within the resolution, it specifically says, whereas 730 ILCS 125:17 further provides that a county shall be entitled to a $10 fee of each conviction or order of supervision for a criminal violation other than a petty offense or business offense, and that such fee shall be taxed as cost collected from the defendant, if possible, upon conviction of entry, blah, 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 blah. I challenge any of you, I'll buy your dinner, show me where it says that in the statute, because it doesn't. It was a resolution that was drafted as a feel-good way to get some more money. And the way the statute reads, if the individual has a medical expense, you have a right to get reimbursed from that individual's expense. If you got convicted, I'm not trying to single you out by any means, and you never needed a medical expense, right now you'd get charged that $10. But the law is designed as a reimbursement method, not as a carte blanche, we're going to charge everybody. And that's why we go back to the actual statutes and we read it, we apply case law, and we bring it to your attention in hopes of fix it. That's it. Fix it. But when it doesn't get fixed, we'll be back. Because that's what we do. Because the taxpayers are on the hook. I don't know how many, and this is recoverable. The fees that you're paying for a private attorney is all recoverable in a civil suit. That money should have never been authorized, ever. And it's because nobody's reading the statutes and applying the case laws to know you can or can't do it. We do what we've always done because that's the way we've always done it. As a new board member, I beg of you, read the statutes, ask the tough questions. Anytime you need advice, get it in writing. The question was asked about video, and I'm glad you asked it. How many have taken your Open Meetings Act training? Okay, the answer to that question is in that training. But we go online and we zip through the test because, gosh, it's such a burden. Well, the answers are there. We just have to go back and refresh ourselves on them.
93 pages.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, before he leaves, I got a question that he mentioned a statement way in the beginning about a board member hollered, "Shut up." Would that be classified as workplace violence? Could it be?
Could have been. And it
Well,
was-
let me answer that if I may, Chairman. That's a great question, and what I would recommend to you as a local government accountability organization would be to talk with your legal counsel and have your legal counsel provide you the legal answer to that question, because I'm not here to answer legal questions.
Okay.
You know, it was well deserved.
It doesn't matter.
I'm answering his question.
And then let me have the floor. It does not matter. I was the board member. I was out of line, and it shouldn't have happened. Won't again. But it nevertheless happened, and I apologize for it, Erica. I apologized after the meeting, and I was out of line.
And if I may, Chairman, interrupt, thank you. That's how things should work. Seriously, it's so simple. We get so wrapped up in emotional and my way, their way, left, right, liberal, conservative, Democrat, Republican. You know what? I go down to the restaurant, I don't know who's sitting next to me. I really don't. But I know when I pull out my wallet, it's affecting me just like it's affecting everybody else everywhere I go. And right now, in one reading of one set of minutes, I've identified more illegal spending than you can imagine. And it needs to stop.
Did you
Yes,
do this
ma'am.
for every county?
Pardon?
Did you do this for every county?
Ma'am, I've been to more county board meetings than I can shake a stick at.
So everybody in the state's kind of not doing anything right?
It's actually, there's a lot of different areas they do things different, and it's back to the point I made. When one county does something, a neighboring county will turn to them and say, well, what are they doing? and it becomes a pattern. Well, they're doing it, so it must be okay, and nobody's asking that tough question is, well, does the law really let us do that? And a case in point, in DuPage County, you guys set your compensation 180 days before your term, or before a term begins. You only get what's on that document, nothing else. We had uncovered other benefits, healthcare benefits, car allowances, all these other perks that they were getting that were never in the resolution. Well, they'd always done it that way because the neighboring county did it too. Now, they corrected it. They've stopped it. They redid the resolution. It went into effect for the next term, and they have addressed it. That's all we're asking, is to address it when it's identified. But from the township level all the way up, I don't care where we go, it's easy to find things wrong. The tough part is to find the willingness to fix it. I can't believe how resistant people are to fixing it by creating excuses to justify what we did. You know what? It is what it is. Just fix it.
Mr. Chairman, when I took an oath, just as the good lady did today, defend Shelby County. I don't care what other counties, I don't care about them other counties. This is our home county. This is the one we worry about. If we're doing it right or wrong, and we need to be making it right, I don't care if every county around us winds up in jail, at least keep ourselves out of it.
Do we go through Gina then on almost everything we do?
Yes. If it needs to be a legal action, yes.
Sometimes it's how it's presented as to whether you dig in your heels or not, but if Gina's gonna say everything we should or shouldn't do, it'd be a different story.
That's why she needs to be here, Barb. That's why I said we need
She
legal
is
representation.
here.
Just like the example she set for us today. When the chairman started making a motion, she said we need to hold off to next month.
And Mr. Baker, I mean, I missed 2 meetings last year in 2019 because I had jury trials going on during the time of the county board meeting. Otherwise, I'm here. So it kind of seemed like I was getting the impression that you didn't think I am. I am.
Well, you need to be out here when we can see you and the public see you. That way they know that you're representing us. That's all.
Chair,
When you're in a closet,
if I can
come on in the
address that, I've got a
closet.
real simple solution.
Go ahead.
It's a great question. I understand your perspective on it. The one thing that is unique with this versus other public bodies is she represents you, but she also represents the people.
Yeah.
And the criminal side of that is, I wouldn't want any part of that. I can tell you what we've done and what we've seen other entities do. We would use the reference books, but we would sit around as a board and we literally would pull out the suggested guidelines that the county, I forget the name of it that you referenced, but the UCCI book or the TOI book for townships or municipal book, and we would literally look up this topic that we were discussing or having a problem with and say, well, how do you read that? How do you read that? Well, the law says this. Are we in agreement? If we're not, hey, let's draft a question up and then send it to the state's attorney based on the discussion you've already had. That way, she's not blind to all of the things you've already looked at and considered. And it really does streamline it. Because more often than not, if you do nothing but depend on one person to answer all your questions, do you make mistakes? We all do. And in that process, there's no guarantee that she's going to give you the exact accurate answer, because there might be some case law that she didn't catch. Or something that just popped up from somewhere else that's been identified. There's a lot of information out there, there really is.
And I think, Mr. Allen, you didn't specifically say this, but I think you raised kind of a good point. If you guys as a committee get together and figure out what the question even is, because sometimes the way the question is phrased to me, I may answer a certain way, but if, you know, once I find out certain facts or whatever, I may answer a different way.
Absolutely, absolutely. Absolutely.
And we also pay the state's attorney appellate prosecutor. I mean, do we have the option to use them for things that she might be in conflict with? They always used to negotiate the union contracts.
Well, the appellate, I mean, I'm sure you're familiar with the appellate prosecutor and what they can and can't be involved in. I mean, most counties do that because that can be a huge savings when you are conflicted and they have to take it over. What was happening now with your current hiring of someone to do your labor relations, there's no provision for that. I mean, the law and the case law is crystal clear. It's an inappropriate expenditure of taxpayer money.
Would you entertain a motion to it?
I second it. Yeah. I have a motion to adjourn.
Well, no, I gotta read this. I gotta read
Go
this.
ahead.
I'd like to make a motion to assess mileage and per diem for the January meetings, to approve paying the bills, payroll as reviewed by the committees, and the key word there is reviewed, and adjourned until the next regular meeting to be held on February 13th.
I have a question.
That's not on the agenda.
There were 4 bills in question from the committee.
Uh-huh.
What happens with those 4 bills that were in question?
I think we need to have a meeting to see and to hear what can and can't be done.
So you want, those 4 bills will be held, well, I guess actually 5, those 5 bills will be held until the board makes a decision for payment on those, correct?
Well, they're not on the agenda, so we probably can't talk about it, can we?
We can talk about it.
The
just
bills
get
are on it.
Okay.
Let's get it on the agenda for next month.
What bills?
Find out what
So
those
those
4
bills
bills
paid
are. What are the 4
No, the
bills?
bills will not be, the
What are
bills
the
will
4
not be
bills?
held. There was a bill to reimburse an employee for a Christmas dinner. There was a bill to reimburse a commander for a Christmas dinner. There were 2 bills for Christmas dinner reimbursements, and then there was a bill for a breakfast.
Were there agendas, were there meetings held?
Were there agendas or were they?
There was no notice sent out.
I have received no agendas or meetings.
Those bills will be, they were questioned. Go ahead, Gary.
I asked the question yesterday, is this illegal to pay them? This dealt with the rescue team. They had a Christmas dinner and bought steaks. I'm on the rescue committee, and believe me, our members deserve everything they can get as far as appreciation. But that wasn't my question. I will stand behind the men, and I hated to say no, but I voted no on it, simply because I could not get an answer, and this has come up on several occasions, and it gets shoved off, we'll change it for the next time. But my response we got back was, we've always done it. And I appreciate what these gentlemen do. And if they're after me, I'm gonna hate them just as much as anybody else. But I do appreciate what they do. And we've got a lot of things that I'm having to make moves on and votes on that I'm going to start voting no more because of just exactly what's going on.
It sounds to me like on the 4 bills in question, you need to refer that to Gina.
The committee voted to pay the bills. The majority voted to pay the bills.
With the understanding that we're going to meet, because these were all Christmas related, so before next year, we've got to come up with something. But you got a guy that's sitting out there that paid for this out of his own pocket. And he doesn't deserve, he didn't know about the rule when he paid for it and submitted the bill. And I didn't think he should be held for the $100.
I even made a motion I would donate to it just to get it paid and get him his money back.
So these 4 bills were approved by the purchasing committee.
Yes.
And then another question came up. And did Erica, were you the one that found the other question, or who legally figured this out? I mean, what we paid for Christmas parties.
We paid
But
for
there
the
were no
steaks.
meetings.
On the one that I'm on the rescue committee, as I say, they had a meeting, or a Christmas party. They fixed steaks. I was invited to it, but I couldn't make it.
Is it in their budget?
Was it a public, was it a business meeting?
Oh, where it get, no. Well, I was told yes and was told no. So I know there was no public notice put out on the meeting. I know there was no minutes taken at the time. And
My advice is,
the other problem comes in, this is money from their fundraisers.
pockets.
But they put it in the county treasury. And that makes it county money, in my understanding.
I think we need to hold payment on those 4 bills until further discussion is held, and I think you need to go to the state's attorney and regard the legality of the payment.
Well, and another question too, I don't understand why they raised the funds from steak, or hamburger, they're cooks, they make money for, and they buy equipment that the county, we don't have the money to buy it. And I thoroughly appreciate every one of those men and all the time they put in there. They deserve to get a little pat on the back.
Erica?
I'm in the process of going through every state statute, every fund that we have in the county, and compiling those statutes that give us the statutory authority to pay out of those funds. What exactly every fund can pay out. It's a long process. I've had to contact Judge Harlow on one because finding it sometimes in the compiled statutes that are this big, but it's something that I've got partially finished, that once I complete it, I will get copies to every board member, because there is statute that dictates what can come out of every fund, what feeds it and what comes out. So that is one of the things that I'm working on.
Didn't we have a judge though tell us if it's in their budget, that we really don't have a say-so on it?
We've had that, but let's just take the advice and get it legal.
Yeah.
I want this, the board is, you know, what Mr. Kirk over here has explained to us, you know, we have no idea. What Mike Miller said, yeah, I probably was at the meeting and probably helped approve all that stuff, but maybe, you know, we've had times in the past we've been misled. I'm not gonna say we haven't. We're in a lawsuit out here on the west side of town that we were misled on.
East
Side. East side of town, out here. And it's been going on 15 years, but we're still in it. And so I appreciate what is being said. Let's listen, let's find out the legality, and we'll, the purchasing committee, who's the director of the, who's the chairman of the purchasing committee?
Lynn.
Okay, so Lynn, get with Lynn, Lynn gets with her, the purchasing committee comes back to us next month and makes a recommendation.
So from what I'm hearing from you is we're not gonna pay these bills right now, but do we need to have an amendment to that motion to saying that?
Pay the bills with the exception of the 4 that are questioned.
So moved.
Or did we even get a second to the first motion, or did you
Have a
amend your
second
motion?
from Dale, or not? Those in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. It is adjourned.
That was adjournment, that's adjourned. Meeting's over.